everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome back to my sewing room. Today I am going to be starting on a brand new project. I am making a corset. I know I don't do a lot of corsets on this channel, but it is time to replace my 19 teens corset and make myself a new one. I made my 19 teens corset back in 2012, so it has had a very good long life with me, but unfortunately the eyelet holes, a lot of them, because I did not use metal grommets, they are all ripping out. Also, I know that it is not the most ideal fit. Like, I'm pretty sure this closes all of the way up at the top and then it kind of goes wide and then kind of comes back in together. So it's not exactly the best fit. This is just boned with cable ties, like from the hardware store, other than the metal busk. I think that's the only metal that's in here. Yeah, everything else is cable ties. But honestly, it has served me so well. And this was made out of ticking and canvas together, 2 layers. So the corset that I'm going to be doing today is the Scroop Rilla corset. So it's from Scroop Patterns. It's the Rilla corset. I'll link it down below in the description. But this is their 19 teens corset, not the brand new one that they just came out with that is like a 19 aughts, I think is the newest one. So this corset has been around for a little while. And I think it should make up into something that's pretty similar to what I have. My corset that I've been using for years was actually based off of a tutorial, like blog post sort of thing by Festive Attire, Jen Thompson. I'll also link that down below if you want to go that route. It is a free corset pattern / tutorial, and honestly it has worked great for years, so that is a really great free option. But I decided I wanted to try something a little bit different for this one, so hence why we are doing the Scroop Rilla corset. Now, the Scroop Rilla corset is meant to be made out of only 1 layer of fabric, something that is like not at all stretchy. They recommended like a coutil or like a ticking or other types of fabric. I went and I bought some pink cotton canvas from Joann's. I've made lots of corsets and stuff out of their cotton canvas and it works really well. And I am intending ideally to make this as a 1-layer corset. I guess we'll see if it feels like this is enough or if I want to add a second layer to it and then sandwich the bones in between, because that's kind of the main difference between a 1-layer corset and a 2-layer corset. With a 2-layer corset, you can just sandwich all of your boning channels inside and not have any of those exposed boning channels. And I do find that in a lot of my corsets, that's kind of the weak point. Like I wind up with boning, poking through boning channels regardless of what I make those channels out of. So you can see like the construction of this one was really quite nice. Like all of the seams are enclosed and it just looks really, really nice and well finished inside with that 2-layer corset. Obviously, a 1-layer corset is not going to wind up looking quite so finished because you're going to have seams inside. So that's kind of another thing about a 1-layer. So we'll see how this goes. The other thing that I didn't really plan on is the fact that of course I have to do a mock-up of this corset, but I only bought enough of this fabric to do one. So I'm probably going to wind up having to go back to Joann's in this because I don't think that I have any other fabric here, like enough of it that could serve as a mock-up out of an appropriate type of fabric like a cotton canvas. So yeah, I'm probably going to go ahead and just use this for my mock-up and then go get more fabric from Joann's for the actual and then decide after the mock-up phase if I do want to do this as a 1-layer or a 2-layer corset. So there are some changes that I am going to be making to this corset. So let's jump over to look at the corset pattern and I will walk you through some of the changes that I'm making before we even get to mock-up stage. So after cutting out and taping together all of the pattern pieces here, the first thing that I did was I compared the pieces to my current corset. And basically what I was finding is that this seems really, really short-waisted, like from waist to the top. This is supposed to be an underbust, but it is kind of supposed to sit just a little bit above where the bra line is, like where your underwire is. It's supposed to sit kind of above that because it helps to give just that little bit of oomph there. And then of course you would wear just a really like sort of soft bralette, or that's what they kind of had in the Edwardian era. It was like a soft bralette that they'd wear with that. But it does give that little bit just under the bust. However, this is hitting way below my bust. So you can see I've written some notes on here, and basically to compare this to my current corset, which still isn't quite tall enough, It is actually 2 inches shorter than my current corset. And so I think I'm actually going to bring that up by 3 inches. Likewise, I made some notes over here on the back where it is actually 3.25 inches shorter than my current corset. I had made the 1.5 inch note before finding out how much shorter it was. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and bring it up that 3.25 inches and then take up all of the pieces that go in between them as well, like tapering from one to the other. Now that said, this one is significantly longer or down past the hips than my current corset. So I've made some notes to that effect as well. Like it's 1.75 inches longer on the back piece. It's 7/8 inches longer on the front piece. So I am going to cut this to where this goes. And I am cutting the view A, I think, just because I know that I can then cut that away and get rid of some of that extra length if I don't want it. So yeah, I'm gonna cut these like super long basically. The sizes seem pretty good. I think you might notice that I did kind of go in between sizes depending on where like hips and waist and bust were on the size chart, but that's a pretty normal thing. Like I do that with really all patterns. So I'm hoping that size-wise, this will actually be pretty good. So let's go ahead and cut out our fabric and do a little mock-up. So a couple of weeks ago, while I was waiting on like materials for this, I went and I bought actually on Amazon because I wanted them to get here quickly and they were relatively inexpensive, busks for corsets. I got this one and then this one should be the same but slightly shorter. To be honest, I didn't even open it, but I thought that I had done all of my measurements correctly, though I think this was when I was thinking of raising this not the full 3 inches but a little bit less. And I just made my marks on this corset based on like where this top would be if I lined this up and then shifting this down here where the bottom would be here. Now this is view B on top, but view A on the bottom, just FYI, because again, I'm probably gonna wind up cutting some of this down. And anyway, the longer busk that I got is not actually long enough for that space. It's close, but it's about 1 inch short. I think I'm gonna make do anyway, because again, I am very possibly going to be cutting some of this down. Particularly like the front seems really long. This was where it was 7/8 inch longer than my existing corset. So I think I'm going to go ahead and position this on the upper side because actually cutting this 7/8 inch shorter would wind up meaning that the busk hits exactly where it's meant to go. By the way, this busk is the length of the busk in my old one, which was, I think, also why I had chosen this one. This old corset, I have the busk, and then I also do have a hook down here. I think this pattern may actually call for 2 hooks down there because I think you'll notice I wound up having to put kind of a patch pad over the corner because what was happening on this one was it was pulling away sharply at the bottom of the busk, and the busk was trying to slice through the fabric there. So this was a fix that I did long time ago. I don't even know when, but it's held well with the patch on there. But yeah, even the hook was not really helping to fully keep this together and prevent it from pulling over the edge of the busk. So when you are inserting a busk in a corset, you want to basically sew in between where all of these little bits are going to wind up sticking out of the corset. So as you can see, what I've done here is I lined it up with that front line. I'm on the wrong side of the fabric right now, by the way, because that's the side you're going to be looking at because right side's together. So I've lined it up with the top, and then I've just gone through with my friction pen and marked there and then here, like basically each of these corners, so that I know this part is where I stitch, then I stop, then I stitch again. So stitch there, stop, stitch there, stop, stitch there, stop, etc. all the way down. And then this part just gets stitched all the way down to the facing. And yes, my facing is a different color because apparently the amount of fabric that I bought, which I forget what it was not enough. I think I only bought 1 yard, and because I lengthened these, I couldn't like stack up any. So I basically had to use the pattern layout where it's like 1, 1, 1, 1, but that's meant for smaller sizes. Hence why I couldn't get this out. But luckily I had some strips of canvas. So This is a mock-up. It's okay. It'll be a different color. And if it works, I'll, I don't know, live with it or go back and redo it in the right color. But yeah, so now I'm going to stitch these right sides together in between each of those places. And that is just happening on the right side of this corset. The left side gets this type of busk. So what you wind up actually doing is poking little holes. So it's kind of the same sort of concept. I will start with the line at the top and then I will mark where each of these holes are and I will poke little holes with my awl, and then these get poked through those holes. So my busk is now in, and I'm finding something kind of interesting with these instructions because they basically are having me put in like the busk and put in the start of the waist tape, which I have not actually done that yet, and also do like the entire, all of the grommets and everything down the back, and then sew all of the pieces together and then adjust from there. Kind of assuming that like, oh, well, I guess the front is good, I guess the back is good, and then we will fix any other adjustments that need to happen within that. That's a weird and kind of risky feeling thing to me because I am not positive exactly how many grommets I have. Like, I know I have enough for one corset's worth. I don't know that I have enough for like two. So in other words, if I were to do the backs up and then it's totally wrong and I need to do a whole other new back piece, I think I'd have to buy more grommets first. And it just feels like a lot of work to do to put in the grommets before knowing if the corset's actually gonna fit like at all, especially because I don't know length or width because I'm not positive on the length. But the other option is using like lacing tapes, which is what I've used in past corsets, which is why there's still corset lacing in this one. But basically these are tapes that you purchase that have little grommets built into them already. You know, obviously there's no boning in these, so like you're supposed to have boning on either side of the lacing, and there's not really a good way to do that with this. Now I know that Noelle from Costuming Drama, she has actually made herself like test boning strips, which is cool, and I believe that hers have like boning and then all the grommets, and she can just put that onto any corset or stays that she's testing out, which is a really cool idea, and I probably should do that. I have not done that though because I have been using these in the past, but I'm actually almost kind of tempted. Maybe I should do the grommets in the back panels and then go from there. The one, I guess, hiccup to that is that I don't have enough of the pink fabric to do the facings for the back, so the fabric would be a different color, which like isn't a big deal. You don't see it from the outside, so you know, whatever. And then I guess at that point I would put the waist stay in here. I didn't do it because I wouldn't have done it on a mock-up. But if this is potentially going to be a mock-up that could become the actual, maybe that's the route I should go. So I now have the facings attached onto the back pieces as well. And I'm at the point where I'm putting in a couple of boning channels on either side of the grommets, the area where the grommets are going to go, since I'm gonna go ahead and do that, I guess. And the pattern itself calls for 2 different widths of the like plastic boning. I think it does say that you can use the steel bones as well. I don't have steel bones. I don't have the ability to like cut steel bones, and trying to guess and figure out what kind of steel bones you need to order, that's just not something I want to deal with. So I am going to be using the synthetic whalebone for the most part. That said, basically what it wants you to do is have the boning channels on either side of where the grommets are be a wider width boning than the whole rest of all of the boning in there. So I have all of this German plastic boning. To be honest, I do not remember where I bought it from. May have been corsetmaking.com because I know I've gotten it from them before, but I have all of this, and this is, I think, 6 millimeters wide, possibly as wide as 7. I don't remember. I ordered this, I think, back when I was making my 19/aughts corset, so it's been a few years. And the pattern itself calls for 7 millimeter wide for the regular boning channels, and then it calls for 10 millimeters wide for the lacing. Now, in a couple of corsets that I've done where it is synthetic boning, I have still put steel boning next to the lacing. But again, I don't have steel bones, and I especially don't have steel bones that are long enough. So the only other wider thing that I have that is long enough are cable ties. These are really old because I haven't used cable ties in a corset in a long time. I'm pretty sure that's why these are like yellowed, because they've literally been sitting in the corner of my room for who knows how long. So part of me is a little bit concerned of like, should I even be using these at all? But the 19 Teens corset from 2012, I used these, and honestly the boning is still just fine. And unlike a lot of my other corsets, I've actually never had an issue on that one with the boning poking through. Now I don't know if that's because it doesn't utilize boning channels, or if it's because it's this boning and this boning just does a better job of not poking through. Maybe because it's wider, I don't know. These cable ties are almost the exact width that I need for this. They are 9mm wide. And honestly, they feel like they're about the same sturdiness as regular synthetic boning. And again, I have made multiple corsets in the past using these before synthetic boning really became like a thing. For those of you who aren't aware, synthetic boning is really a rather newer type of thing. And so back even like 2012, it didn't exist in the costuming community. I'm not really sure who first made it a thing, but it's great that they did. But I don't even know where you get it in 10mm widths, and I certainly don't have time to like order it and wait for it to get here if I want to continue working on this corset without a pause. So I think we're gonna go ahead and try these for around the lacing. I have like half a package left. These were from Home Depot originally, by the way, and they are Malco brands, which is ironic because it almost looks like the same script as Malco Modes, back when Malco Modes was a beautiful petticoat thing. So yeah, that's the kind. I don't know if they still even make these anymore, but we're gonna go ahead and give these a try for around the lacing, and then we're gonna put in some grommets. One other thing that I'm going to change about this though is just how close the grommets are to each other. So this is the lacing template that comes with this pattern, and these grommets are so close to each other. They are actually 3/4 of an inch away from each other. And that just to me seems impossibly close. In contrast, these are 1.5 inches from each other. My Regency corset I just measured, also 1.5 inches. And even my Edwardian like 19-aughts corset that I really like, these are 1 inch. So I think I will kind of split the difference, and I'm gonna go with the 1 inch because I feel like any tighter than this, it's just gonna be pretty ridiculous, and there'd be just so many of them too. Like honestly, I'm kind of tempted to do 1 1/4, but I think I'm probably gonna go with the 1 inch. I don't know, maybe I'll do 1 1/8, really split the difference. Because yeah, 3/4 of an inch, it's just way too close together for me. I do want to say though that it's not that the 3/4 inches is incorrect or anything like that. I actually went and I looked at my extant 1920s corset, which I have done an entire video examining this, so I will link that one down below if you want to take a close look at how this 1920s plus size corset is made, which is honestly kind of similar to a 19 teens corset. This one, they are 3/4 of an inch, these lacing eyelets. So like that's really, really tight together though. I think you can just see how tight that is. And this also is honestly a much nicer lacing cord than what I am most likely going to be using, which is more like this right here. So it's much thicker, and I think that this is what I have on my 19-aughts corset as well, and I think it's just too thick and bulky to go through eyelets that are going to be that close together. So yeah, maybe I'll go with the 1 inch and we'll just call it good with 1 inch. So to put the grommets in, what I'm doing here is opening up a small hole where I've marked my grommet with a tapered awl. Then from the right side of the fabric, I'm taking the longer, more columnar side of the grommet and I'm pushing it through that opening. If you find that there's threads that are getting in the way, you can use your fingernail or even the point of the awl to get those threads out of the way, just to move them. But moving them is better than slicing through the threads if you can. It's better to slice through as little of the threads as possible when you're putting in grommets. Then once you have that side in, from the wrong side of the fabric, you're going to put in the disc side of the grommet. Then you're going to use your grommet setter. I have one that requires hitting it with a mallet, and you are going to put the right side of the fabric against the base of that grommet setter, and then put the part that you hit with the mallet, that's the technical term, through from the wrong side and hit it with the mallet. You want to do this gently at first, like a few hits gently, and then do a couple more hits that are a little stronger. I also then take it down to the table or the flat surface that I'm working on and hit that grommet a little bit more just flat, because otherwise I find that bits of where the grommet side has gone through the other side will want to catch on the lacing cord as it goes through the grommet. And this is what it looks like with all of the 44 grommets in place, as well as the lacing bones on either side of the grommet channels. So now I think the next step is to put everything together. So as you can see, I have assembled the corset, and the instructions say to put it on inside out, which is honestly very challenging to do up a busk inside out. I hope that I got all of the little pegs in, not positive. But what I'm worried about here is that this is actually enormous on me. I have not pulled it tight yet, so I do still have the lacing gap here, but this, like, it practically feels like a t-shirt. Like, it feels so big. So I am going to lace this up, but I would be extremely surprised if this does not close all of the way closed, because yeah, this feels so big. Now obviously it does not yet have the bones in there either, so I'm not going to have that structural feeling that I would have in like the actual finished corset, because it only has the busk in the center front and then the lacing bones in the back. And I think I need the mirror to do up the laces, but I can already tell you that just the little bit that I have done, we are completely closed, and I could go way tighter. So part of me is feeling like, why even bother? Yeah, I have a feeling I'm just gonna need to take in like, I don't know, a ½ inch from like every single seam or something. This is supposed to have a 2-inch wide lacing gap all of the way up the back. And honestly, I was concerned when I was looking at the size chart and the information about having like that lacing gap and everything. I was concerned that this was going to be too large. So I kind of had this premonition, but I did it anyway because, you know, trying out a new pattern, it's the good thing to do. But yeah, I'm all the way closed in the back. So I figure out where exactly it's going to need the taking in. Like the waist, honestly, probably I just need to take out 2 inches because it's all the way closed, and I think that this is the fit that I want when it's not all the way closed. But obviously there are other parts of this. Now the top is not exactly all the way closed at the moment. Let me get that done. Oh my gosh, you guys, the top is so large. It's also, I think, sitting a little higher than I wanted it to. Like, it's hard to tell because it's so large, but I think that the top needs to be significantly smaller. Okay, this is now laced closed, or as laced closed as I can get it, because honestly, without any resistance in the top, I'm actually having a problem even just pulling the laces tight because it just like pulls out at me because it's so big. Like so big. Oh my gosh. I'm honestly kind of flabbergasted at how large this is. And also, honestly, I think I did need almost at least all of that length, if not all of that length, because this is just coming up to the very bottom of my bust, which is really where I had wanted it. And I don't think it would stand up taller with the bones. I don't know if the back might be a little high though. I think the back is too high. So I do want to cut down the back a little bit, but I don't think I want to cut down the front other than in size, because obviously I'm going to need to take 8 to 10 inches somehow out of this rib cage area. Like, I don't even understand how this is possibly this large, but it is. So I don't even know if it's worth trying to just like take out, like pin out sections because it's so large. I think I might just go ahead and arbitrarily take out 2 inches everywhere. The hips, I don't know. I think probably I'm gonna need 3 to 4 inches out on the hips, but I think I might start with 2 inches. I don't know just how loose this is supposed to be at the bottom. Right now it's literally like a skirt, but obviously it doesn't have the bones in there. But the rib cage area, again, like 8 to 10 inches. So I'm just gonna start tapering things in and see where I have to go from there. All right, mock-up take 2, or I guess 1.2 is on. I took in so much of this. Like, basically the entire back got, both seams got taken in so that it was a 1/4 inch going like all the way down from waist to the bottom on each seam. So in other words, it took out 2 inches total. And then the top, I think one of the seams, it went up to 7/8 inches on each side of the pattern piece, and the other one was 3/4 inches on each side of the pattern piece. So that's like what, something like 7 inches or something like that coming out. And then in the front, these front ones got taken out a whole bunch from waist up to basically kind of straighten out the pattern pieces so that they didn't like curve out at all from waist to the top, and then it just curves out from the bottom. So I didn't change the bottom seam allowances whatsoever on the front below the waist, or like from waist down. It was all just tapered up to the top. And as you can see, this corset is now actually having a function. Like, it's actually doing something, despite there still not being the bones in. But even there, it's like, it's not crinkling as much. It's obviously crinkling right at the waist because there's no bones in it, but otherwise it's actually doing a pretty decent job of like keeping everything in check. Now, that said, we are still not where we need to be because, as you can tell, the lacing is just, we're like, what, 1 inch, I think, away? Like, there's only 1 inch gap, and that is not a large enough gap for me. Like, I want there to be a 2-inch gap at least when it is laced all the way tightly. Now, I know that adding the bones in will create bulk that will prevent it from being like as tight, if that makes sense. Like, it takes up more room to have the bones in there. However, it will also give me the ability to lace tighter because there are bones, and of course it doesn't like collapse as I lace it. I did not have the problem where the back was literally falling down as I tried to pull it in, now that I've taken those like 7+ inches out of it. So again, we're a lot closer, but I think that everything overall, I just need to make like the seam allowances a little bit larger so that I can take out 1 inch total. Like, it's not a lot, but I just need to take that out. The reason, by the way, that I took out only from the back primarily and not from the front was because I noticed that even with the previous try on, these side panels right here were really quite centered over my sides, and I think that they still are. If anything, they're still kind of wanting to be a little bit more towards the forward side than the back side. So maybe all it is that I have to take out that last inch worth just from the back panels and not from the front, because, well, I don't know, the top of it seems like it's maybe more towards the back, but the bottom of it seems like it's more towards the front. So I'm gonna have to examine that and see where that last inch needs to be taken out from. The other question that I'm still having is A, is it too long down here? And B, is it way too loose? Like, the bones, I think, don't go all the way down in the front, because otherwise obviously you wouldn't be able to sit or like bend over or anything like that. So you do want it loose, but like, is there a point of it being this long if it is also this loose. So I'm gonna have to do a little research on that, I think, and find that out before I kind of finalize my mock-up. Obviously this isn't the final mock-up anyway, because I do need to increase the width of that lacing gap in the back. And then yeah, the bottom situation I'm just not sure of here. That said, I do think that the top, I think that is where I want it, because I feel like it is now kind of helping. I am wearing a bra, I'm wearing a modern bra and a modern camisole, but I feel like it is helping to kind of give that little bit of support to the underneath side of the bra that a corset of this era would have done to like the bralette that you'd be wearing. The back height, I'm still not that sure about, and especially now because I took so much out of the seam allowances, the back pieces are no longer even from one piece to the other. They're kind of like this because of just how the pieces were shaped and where I took it out of. So I'm gonna have to kind of like smooth that over, but I think still that the center, I don't know, the center might be a little high. So I may actually wind up having to kind of forego the top lacing grommet and take that out. This is kind of the difficulty with like doing your grommets ahead of time and not knowing exactly how the fit should be, because now I've got grommets in there and I obviously don't want to redo the entire back panel just to lose off one grommet on the top. That's not going to happen. So I'm going to have to examine that in the mirror and determine, and that might be something that I wait to determine until I have like the final fitting pieces. So all of that said, it is actually now Monday, and you know what that means when we get to Monday. It means it's actually going to be the end of this video, and you're going to have to wait for the rest of this project in next week's video, where I think I should be able to finish this. Hopefully, I think within next week, because we are pretty close on the fit at this point. So once I finish figuring out the fit, it's really just like actually attaching in the waiststay everywhere that it needs to go around, and then putting the boning channels on, obviously cutting off the excess seam allowance, but putting the boning channels on, and the boning channels, I believe, wind up covering all of the raw edges in here. I kept trying to figure that out in the pattern, and it was not something that was super clear to me, but I believe they will wind up covering all the raw edges, and that's why they don't have you do anything to the raw edges within this pattern. So yeah, putting all the boning channels in and then doing the finishing binding on the top, adding like maybe a little lace. I don't think I'm going to add garters or anything like that, so I don't need to worry about that. But yeah, that is how we finish this corset. So hopefully I'll be able to finish that all next week. But that's going to be it for this week's video. So if you liked this video, please go ahead and click the thumbs up icon. And if you'd like to see more videos like this from me, like the rest of this project, please go ahead and click subscribe and the little bell icon to be notified every time I post a new video. I do post videos here on YouTube at least once a week, with sewing vlogs like this out on Tuesdays and sometimes additional content out on Saturdays, but I post every day over on my Instagram, so please go follow me on Instagram. That's at Lady Rebecca Fashions. And if you'd like to help support all of the work that I do on this channel, I do have links to my Patreon and my Ko-fi down in the description below, or you can send me a super thanks or join my YouTube channel memberships right here on YouTube below the video. I'd also like to give a special shout out to my Edwardian level patrons, Mirage, Jean, and Janelle. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Happy sewing!